Welcome back from the break, and it's good to know you have rejoined us again on the program Good Morning Abuja, showing only on the Unity Station NTA Channel 5. Now we want to discuss a very important topic that concerns all of us, talking about decline in reading culture. And this morning we have a resource person with us who is going to talk to us about the decline, what we ought to do to perfect it, and to make everybody go into reading, make reading very interesting. Help us welcome a public speaker and also an author, Barrister Amana Alkali, to the program. Barrister, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we are glad
you.
to have you on the show.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, yes, it is no longer news. Nobody wants to sit down, carry plenty books before them and start reading.
Of course.
We have issues. Now, this morning we want to see in your own way if you can provide your own little solution to the decline in reading culture. But before we get into your solution, I want you to talk to us about reading culture, why we should read.
Thank you so much. Interestingly, statistics from UNESCO shows that about 35% of adults in Nigeria are illiterate.
Wow.
Yes, interestingly. And that is sad to note, especially given that in Nigeria we have so much potential when it comes to education. And in Nigeria, we've had brilliant minds that have come out of this country, which shows the potential, which shows what we can do while educated. Even people outside the country tell of how Nigerians are excellent in the fields that they are. So reading culture is very important. We can't do without a reading culture. It is when we're able to read that we're able to understand and comprehend the need for us to tell our stories, for us to tell the world who we are and what we do. So reading culture is very important.
Wow, very interesting. I agree with you because reading is gives you information that you don't have
Absolutely
in your hands. Now, as we talk about decline in reading culture, take us through the causes.
Interestingly, when you look at it, these are problems that we can solve.
Okay.
And by that, I'm referring to, for instance, the lack of proper infrastructure for studies and education. So when you go to some schools in Nigeria, you see that they don't have the necessary infrastructure to teach. And by schools, I refer to both nursery, primary, secondary, and tertiary at all levels. Interestingly, in 2019, I volunteered to teach somewhere, yes. And when I volunteered, it's a village at Kogi State. And when I volunteered to take this action, I went to the school. The school was dilapidated, really dilapidated. And you could see that students had the hunger, the zeal to learn. But the education or the environment that was being given to them was not conducive. It wasn't an enabling environment for them to learn. So the infrastructure problem is there. And then again, there is a technology gap. A technology gap in the sense that when you look at our counterparts, other countries in the rest, at other places in the rest of the world, you see how they have developed themselves to teaching even beyond the use of a blackboard and chalk. Yes, but we are still at that level in some places. Of course, when you look at private institutions, they do better. But it is something that if it is integrated at a public level, it would help. Then economic challenges as well. We cannot escape the fact that there are pressing economic issues in the country. So how can parents afford to give their children the best education or education that they should have? There are numerous problems, but these are three out of them that are top of the pile.
Okay, having highlighted these three major ones, causes of decline in reading culture, in your own way, what do you think is the way forward in terms of solution to make everyone read?
Well, when you look at it, it is, like I mentioned earlier, very, very easy to solve, I will say, in terms of theory when you look at it. But it helps again when we make it practical. And by practical, I mean providing, one, proper infrastructure. Yes, it's not something that has to be done at a large scale immediately. No, but it helps when Say, for instance, the governing board of schools can go there and say, okay, this is the minimum standard we expect of a school in the country, not just for private institutions, but for public institutions as well. I say this and I refer to Unity schools, for instance. Unity schools, back in the day, people that attended Unity schools, when I speak with them and they tell you back in the day when they attended Unity schools were even sometimes better than the private schools that people went to. So it would help if we can get that standard back. So proper infrastructure is very necessary. And we need our students also to get in tune with technology. Not just students, but adults as well. And by that, I mean, we have transcended the part where, like I mentioned earlier, we use chalk and blackboard, right? So what are the things that we can do to ensure that we are adopting technology? Right now, you can just go on your phone or your laptop and take a course online. So if that is easy to do, how can it not be possible that the government can say, fine, let's do something in that regard. Let's see how we can make some of these courses less cumbersome. And again, education is about passing information that can be implemented. And you see that technology has helped us with that.
This brings me to the reason why you told me you are a writer, you are an author. Now, let's talk about your book briefly. You wrote a book, and why did you decide to inculcate that into what you're doing?
Oh, interestingly, I was a student, I'm still a student of history and literature. Right. Yes, coming through. And the first book I read that really left an impression on me was Eddie Eros Without a Silver Spoon. Yes, and since that time, I developed this hunger and thirst for books. And so I read a lot of Chinua Achebe, a lot of Cyprian Ekwensi. And coming through, sometime in 2018, I noticed seriously the decline in reading culture, in reading literature in Nigeria. And I went through contemporary literature. I read a lot. So I went through contemporary literature, and I found that the substance that we used to have, we are beginning to lack it in contemporary literature. And not to actually demean anyone's work, no, but I feel we need to tell our stories, not just books about romance and other things. Yes. So that's why I took it upon myself to say, okay, I will channel my writing towards solving and telling about our stories and societal ills and problems. So that's why I started writing. Yes.
Okay. Tell us about the recent one on Kura. Kura means
yes,
what?
Kura.
Kura?
Yes.
Okay.
So Kura in Hausa refers to dust.
Oh.
Yes, or when you see the whirlwind, you know the whirlwind that comes like a tornado, yes. So Kura means that. But subjectively, talking or looking at it from the perspective of my book, it means fierce wind. Yes, and Kura tells the story of a young man who suffers loss, who had everything going good for him. And eventually he now suffers loss, lost his wife, and he now needed to find a way to redeem himself. Now, it is in this process of redeeming himself that he forgot or changed his old name to change it now to become Kura as a person. Yes, and when you go through his story in the book, it's very interesting. I would love to give you a sneak peek, but if you take a copy, you'll see it.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
Wow. What do you think you, as an author, a public speaker, an educationist, let me call you, could tell people to ensure they make reading their habits, their culture, part of their life and system?
So for this, having spoken with a lot of people, and I will say thank you for that question, because having spoken with a lot of people in terms of encouraging them to get a reading habit, most times you get to hear, oh, I don't know how to read, I prefer to watch videos, I don't know how to go through hard copies. I prefer soft copies and the rest of them.
Right now.
Yes, you know. But I'll always tell people that one thing that reading has taught me, or rather, I'll say two things. First, patience.
Wow.
When you pick a book and you are reading a book, there is patience. You develop the art of patience. You are able to bring your mind to focus on one thing and develop your mind in that process If it's hard for you to do it at a long stretch, start small. 2 pages, 3 pages.
You can even start from a page.
Thank you. A page. It's something.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
For your time with us on the program and for encouraging us to start reading again.
Yes.
If you drop that culture, pick it up and start all over.
Yes,
we
it's very important.
Your time.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, we've been talking about the decline in reading culture. And resource person this morning has told us a lot. You know, when you read, you develop your mind. When you read, you see a lot of light and information, which is key to everything you want to do in life. And I have been talking with Barrister Amana Alkali. Now let's go on this quick break. When we come back, we have more for you. Stay with us.